Hello everyone, this is Konkura speaking. Today is the 21st June 2026. Just last month on 24th May, I have introduced to you in a video those three pens to write Hiragana and Katakana with. A standard ballpoint pen, a fountain pen, and a fine liner by the Japanese manufacturer Pentel.co Limited. Guess what? Forget about all of these. Take one of those. This is also a pen by Pentel GFKP Japan. It's still early in the morning, but you should be able to see it. This is a pen that I have been introduced in my Hiragana and Katakana writing class that I have started last week on Saturday and that I have 3 times in a row. Just yesterday I've had my second class. And our Japanese teacher has given us one of those, or did borrow us those for the class. And I have asked her, this is so good, where did you get this pen from? And she said, well, I brought it from Japan, but you can also buy them, of course, today everywhere. And I was lucky to find one of those. This is actually a brush pen. So it is like a brush, but as you can see, it is just like a pen. And those are very, very good to write Hiragana and Katakana with. In fact, they just feel like a brush when you write Hiragana and Katakana. And it's even far more beautiful than, if you use, for example, a fine liner, which is also good, but, this is really the real deal. And just to tell you, because there are numerous different pens, this one is you see it here on the right side where my thumb is, the GFK P3A0. They are different pens actually. In Japan, my teacher told me they only cost maybe 5 or 6 euro. But of course, here where I live in Berlin, Germany, they are more expensive. This one was actually from a special offer. It did cost me 20 euro and 90 cents, which included 3 cartridges. And where I do have the cartridges, you can find them in one of those packages. Well, this one is closed now, but can also show you when you open the pen. It's just like with a fountain pen, such a cartridge that you just insert by just okay. It's inside. Well, anyway, that was probably an outtake, but I'm not cutting this because I want you to see everything that I do, and of course I now painted my finger. Anyway, let's get to the point. I show you now how beautiful you can actually write Hiragana and Katakana with. Let me just, for example, I have to hold the camera at the same time. Look at this. This is Hi for Hiragana, and as you can see, the more you press with the pen down on the piece of paper or sheet of paper, the thicker your lines can be. So you can also write lines like this, and it has a wonderful feeling. Here, I'm holding the camera now, so it's not perfect what I'm doing, but even now, by just holding the pen and holding the camera at the same time with my left hand, it's far more beautiful actually than as if you would write even with a fine liner. With a fine liner, you can see it. No, I'm just writing he now, because the fine liner is not what my focus is today. Those ones are the real deal actually. Those brush pens, and again, you can buy extra cartridges. Those cartridges, there are 4, and I was choosing the ones with black color. I'm sure that I think there are also some for white color, And when you finished, you just, of course, just close the pen. You know, it works just like with a ballpoint pen. You know, the cartridges are actually the same, just like with ballpoint pens, and it works like a ballpoint pen. But again, when you write with it, it is like a brush, and it has a perfect feeling in the hand. Again, this is not even the most expensive one. My teacher said there are some that only cost really just a few euro, and I have seen them online too. But some of those can go up to at least 100 euro. But if you really want to write hiragana and katakana, then you should probably really use those kinds of pens, because they are just perfect. And when you let me wait, or if you wait just for a second, because I have obviously already written with this brush pen on those sheets that my teacher gave us in our class. This is what I already did with the brush pen. You know, she gave us the sheet, and then we were trying to write the hiragana again. And yes, that's my Japanese name in katakana, of course. Yeah, as you can see, they are far more beautiful than if you would write with a standard. Well, the ballpoint pen is really not what I recommend, only if you really are running out of time and you need something to write down quickly in hiragana or katakana. But, you know, I really would go for the brush pen. And this is, of course, no advertisement, but of course Pentel is, of course, the standard Japanese company. You can see more here. That, you know, is very famous in Japan, because, you know, they just know what they're doing. And yeah, this is how beautiful you can write hiragana, and also, of course, katakana, and I guess also kanji with this brush pen by Pentel. But of course, I have never written kanji before, because I still have to learn katakana a lot, and hiragana, you know, I always train myself in hiragana as well, to make sure that I do not start to forget them, because you can quickly start to forget them, especially if you're still a beginner, if you do not write and read them, yeah, almost daily for at least half an hour, I say. You know, even O, which is a hiragana that is rarely used, is far more beautiful than if I would write it with a standard ballpoint pen, or even with a fountain pen. And I can show you this. So this is how I write, for example, hiragana, and then, you know, this is how I normally write with a fountain pen. And, you know, I like this very much. I do not know yet if I can actually write this small. Let me just, always have to play around with the camera at the same time. Let me just, for example, if I, yeah, of course, that was a mistake. Again, just concentrate on the he on the left side. As you can see, it's of course not easy, actually. Let me just really carefully. It is possible if you're really careful. Of course, again, I'm holding the camera at the same time. This is supposed to be ka. Yeah, you can write them very small too. But of course, for smaller handwriting, I'd say, well, maybe better use a fountain pen, you know, or a fine liner, of course. A fine liner, the best is 0.5. This is what I have also introduced to you in my latest video. It's part of this playlist, so you can quickly find this. The video where I have introduced the fine liner, the fountain pen, and the ballpoint pen. But you can see this is written with a fine liner. This is what I have just written yesterday in class. Okay, those charts for hiragana and katakana I did write by myself. But yeah, those quick notes that I've made, they were done in class, and those were done with the fine liner. And yeah, there's a certain difference between the fine liner and the brush pen. I personally would say if you write, if you need to write this small, you know, then probably the fine liner is maybe the best option, or at least a good or standard fountain pen. A scratchy ballpoint pen, again, it's you can write with those too. Where did I write this now? Ah, here. Ka. You know, it's just not beautiful enough. You know, those ballpoint pens are really just for quick writing, but actually European or the alphabet, you know, the Western writing system looks just like, not as good as if you would write with a fountain pen or even with a fine liner. But yeah, personally, I am going with the brush pen. What's also important, the ink itself is drying up very quickly, so you do not have to worry about smearing this all over the place. And again, I just want to show it to you another time. What should I write? I love to write no. No is actually my favorite hiragana. So yeah, maybe not the most perfect one because it actually goes like this. But yeah, you know, the most important thing is just the feeling. I'm trying to be very careful now, but you know, you can write those kinds of thin lines, and if you press the brush pen really onto the paper, they can be like this. You know, this is something that you cannot do with a fine liner, with a ballpoint pen, and not even with a fountain pen. You know, by pressing the pen down, when you write with a brush pen, you have different kinds of strengths or sizes when it comes to your strokes. And this is something that you cannot do with those free pens. You can only do this with such a brush pen. Again, I do not say that you have to buy those from Pentel, the official Japanese company that is considered to be the best. But you know, this was the one that I found the quickest. And since my teacher did recommend me to use such a Pentel brush pen instead of a brush pen from a different company, there are for sure different companies that produce those, but you know, those are really the real deal. And again, they are expensive in Germany here compared to Japan, where they only cost a few bucks. Maybe that's also because maybe one of those reasons is, of course, the yen, the Japanese currency, is of course very low, on a historical low that was never there before. But yeah, I just love to write with this one. And of course, when they import them to other countries, they are more expensive. But I'd say the price is good enough for this, for what you get. Let's write maybe a katakana. We can, for example, yeah, this is a ka ta. Ka and na. Yeah, katakana. Again, it's not perfect yet because I have to hold the camera, and it's very hard for me to write hiragana and katakana by holding the camera at the same time. But I need to hold it now because otherwise you cannot really see it. And again, I'd say you should really buy yourself such a brush pen, especially if you like a good feeling in your hand, because those pens have a feeling in your hand. It almost feels like as if you would be using a real brush for calligraphy, okay? And this is really the real deal. And I really enjoy to write with this. I still write with my ballpoint pen. I still write with my fine liner too, not just in class, but especially here. Okay, I haven't written anything yet. This was the final stuff I've written, but you know, it's much better. But because at the beginning I was writing only with a ballpoint pen, and look at my first hiragana. This was from January, just when I have started to learn Japanese, and I have written the hiragana numerous times, but you know, it's so different to write with a brush pen, or at least with a fine liner, than if you would write with a ballpoint pen. It's possible, of course. For example, do we also have some hiragana? Yeah, like this. Those are actually kanji, where I've tried to write some kanji. Here's katakana hyena, for hyena, obviously, but it's just, according to my opinion, it's just not as beautiful as with a brush pen. And I know that I'm repeating myself over and over again. The ballpoint pen is the fountain pen is much better than the ballpoint pen. But again, and of course the fine liner is also very good. But again, if you want to have a real feeling for calligraphy, but you do not want to use a real brush with real ink, then you really have to get yourself one of those brush pens. And then you can write hiragana and katakana in the most beautiful way. Again, this is maybe now a bad example because I was holding the camera while writing those, but again, those ones were still written with my fine liner at first, and then our teacher gave us the brush pen, and this is the result. It's so much better. And it looks just like real calligraphy. If somebody wouldn't know, they couldn't see the difference of you writing with such a brush pen or with a real traditional brush. You cannot see the difference because it's so beautiful. And you also receive a feeling for certain parts of the hiragana and katakana. For example, you always wonder, why are some lines bigger on the pictures than others, even though it's the same hiragana or katakana? Well, with a brush pen you finally get this feeling why it is this way, and that is why I personally recommend to you this brush pen. And this is in the head. It's so much better. Of course, this is not writing, this was actually just printed. Yeah, but again, this is what you can do with a brush pen. And yeah, I think that's it for today. Because again, if you are still a beginner in Japanese like myself, if you buy yourself such a brush pen, it's very easy to use. And again, if you insert the cartridge, at first the brush is actually white at first before the first usage, but if you insert the cartridge and then write a few strokes, then it quickly fills up with the ink, and then it turns out like this. And of course, I can show you this also. So this is what those cartridges look like. They are rather small. They are not as large as the cartridges in the fountain pens, but they also give you a lot of time to write with. And yeah, it's actually, again, you insert and take out the cartridge just like with a standard fountain pen, and that's all you have to do. And otherwise, if you do not use your brush pen for quite a while, then it is possible that you can actually use some warm water, and then you can get off the remaining ink and then insert a new cartridge, and then it works again. So it will give you a lot of time and fun for your money and enjoyment. And yeah, this is all I can tell you. Just get one of those things. I really recommend this to you. Again, if you are in Japan, you get them for a few bucks. If you are at some place else, well, they cost more because of the import. And again, this is not the most expensive one, as I have told you. This brush pen, it did cost me 20 euro and 90 cents. The standard price for this one is actually 24 euro and 90 cents. So I've had a 4 euro discount, and I have already received free cartridges with this one. But you know, they can also go up to 100 euro. You know, it depends, but you do not need to buy those extremely expensive ones, because there's no need for that, because again, there are also cheaper ones. I do not know how good they are. I just want to show you the brush pen that I was able to buy. And you know, if you really want to learn how to write hiragana and katakana, and probably also kanji, and if you want to have a feeling for true Japanese calligraphy, and I guess also for Chinese Hanzi, they would be just as good, you know, if you're learning Chinese, then I really, really recommend to you to buy one of those brush pens. You know, our teacher, again, did borrow us those during the first class, and as quickly as I have started to write with those, I was falling in love with those. And that is why not even a week later, I got myself one of these, because I just needed it. And yeah, so this is just what I want to show you. And yes, I know I'm talking too much again. The video is way too long. Anyway, stay tuned for more. As soon as I find out anything interesting about how to learn Japanese again, I will upload this in my playlist. For now, I say thank you and see you next time.